Good evening, and welcome to the Freshman Forum, Getting Ready for Spring Course Registration Program. My name is Gavin Mitchell, and I work in the Office of Trio Programs. Good evening, and welcome to the Freshman Forum, Getting Ready for Spring Course Registration Program. Together to make sure. My name is Gavin Mitchell, and I work in the Office of Trio Programs. Good evening, and welcome to the Freshman Forum, Getting Ready for Spring Course Registration panel of student success representatives who will discuss some of the resources available to you with your current classes as you head into the second half of your first semester. I encourage you to submit a question for the panel by clicking the button located directly below this video on your screen. Go ahead and start submitting your questions right now. The second part of this program will be a breakout session hosted by each of the college or school advising units focused on the upcoming advising and course registration process. We will provide instructions for how to access your assigned breakout session at the end of the panel. Let's jump right in and get started with our Q&A student success panel. I have 3 guest panelists joining me tonight. Could each of you quickly introduce yourselves and your role on campus? I will start with who I see on my screen. So Sam, you're up.
Hi everyone, my name is Samantha Rayner and I'm an Assistant Vice Provost in the Division of Student Success, and tonight I'm here representing the Academic Achievement Center.
Thank you, Sam. And Dana?
Hi everyone, I'm Dana Saunders. I'm the Director of the Students First Office, which is one of many advising centers here on campus. So glad to talk with you today.
Awesome, thank you, Dana. And Scott?
Hi, I'm Scott Holloway and I'm the Assistant Director for the Academic Success Coaching Program.
Awesome, awesome, awesome. Thank you all. We appreciate you all being here today. Students, it's about halfway through the semester, and I expect many of you are still working on getting the hang of college level classes. There are significant differences between high school and college level work. You have higher expectations from your faculty, it's harder to get high grades, and you have a lot of independent study to do outside of the classroom, just to name a few examples. With all of that in mind, our first question is for Scott. Scott, what are some indicators that a student needs to reach out for help with one of their classes?
So attendance, engagement, and self-awareness are key factors, and I'll talk a little bit about each. Attendance is the #1 predictor of student success. And if a student is not showing up to class, it indicates factors that may be a cause of concern, especially if it's a virtual class. Where it relies a lot more on self-management, and the issue may be a lack of effective scheduling on the student's part, maybe a lack of discipline, lack of structure, maybe even a lack of motivation. So it also, if you're seated, in a program on campus, it could be also a sense of belonging issue, missing, being away from home, depression, even some instances, it has been instances of substance abuse, or any other, factors. So it's important that students, first of all, self-report if they identify that they're struggling in these areas, but it's also important that class instructors also issue flags and starfish early when they, spot students that are struggling, so support services can then reach out and assist those students. Regarding engagement, not only do students need to show up, but they also need to be engaged. The lack of engagement in the class subject matter is a well-established key indicator that a student needs to basically reach out for help with their classes. And engagement with the course subject matter is vital to success and helps students achieve and persist with their studies. Also, students need to know their why. I really believe that you have to have a clear base of why you're here and what motivates you and inspires you to continue towards pursuing your graduation and your career. So what I mean by that is, it is important to students to know their long-term end goal and why they enrolled in college in the first place. Students should keep their long-term end goal in mind at all times and understand that every class is moving them one step closer to graduation and a career. And students, if I can speak to you directly, it is important to remember that for you to achieve your long-term end goal, you do so one class at a time. So do your best to engage in your course subject matter, whether you're interested in the subject matter or not, and also do your best to succeed in the class. Also, the last point, self-awareness. Self-awareness is crucial to success. So opening an ongoing dialogue throughout the semester with an instructor, with an academic success coach, with an advisor, or whomever you can connect with, I cannot say enough about the importance, especially about, meeting with your instructor during office hours and utilizing campus resources. I can talk that ad nauseum, if you will. But whatever your need may be, we're here to assist you with those needs. So if a student knows that historically they have struggled academically or are currently struggling academically in a particular area, they should go and seek help from that area immediately. And don't wait. Don't wait. We're happy to help you. And as I mentioned earlier, the Academic Success Coaching Program, it is one of those valuable resources that can help students who have signed up to participate in the program. And if you are a participant in the Academic Success Coaching Program, you were sent an email today to make an appointment to meet with a coach. And that's important because coaching is an early intervention. And coaches meet with students to discuss their needs and what it takes to succeed academically and personally. Coaches know the resources that are available to students, and they refer students to those resources as needed. And we also offer live web chats for all first-year students, Mondays through Thursdays, between the hours of 11 a.m. and 1 p.m. So I encourage you, all of you students, to reach out to us, visit our chat box. And you can do so by going to go.uncg.edu/ASCP. And I'll say that a little slower. You can go to go.uncg.edu/ASCP, and a coach will be happy to assist you. And finally, I would like to say to students, no campus resource is helpful to you if you do not utilize the resource. So it's okay to talk to your instructor about a struggle that you may be experiencing. It's okay to go and reach out to a campus resource that will benefit you. Reaching out to seek help is not a sign of weakness. It's a sign of strength and a desire to want to succeed, and campus resources are there to help you succeed.
Awesome. Well said, Scott. Yes, absolutely. Please know those resources and seek them out and utilize them. Samantha, could you highlight some of the academic support services on campus that a student can utilize when they need help with a class?
Sure, I'd be happy to. You may be in a class that's supported by supplemental instruction or SI. I'd encourage you to take advantage of those sessions if you are enrolled in one of those courses. If you haven't attended a session yet, what you can expect when you go is for the SI leader to engage the participants in some active learning strategies and activities to help you practice with the course content that you're learning in that week. If your course is not supported by supplemental instruction, it might be supported by tutoring or drop-in tutoring, either through the Academic Achievement Center or through your academic department. If you're not sure whether or not your course is supported through the Academic Achievement Center, you can take a look at our website and see the full list of supported courses for both supplemental instruction and tutoring. There are also many other resources available. The Math Help Center is available to you. The Writing Center, the Speaking Center, and the Digital Act Studio are all available for virtual and drop-in appointments. If you're working on a writing project, or you have a presentation or a digital media project coming up, or you need some additional assistance in mastering a concept in your math course, all of these resources are available virtually. Also, don't forget about the resources available through the library. So if you're doing a research project, the library has some great research guides on their website that you can access. You can also chat with a librarian through their website, similar to what Scott mentioned with the Academic Success Coaching Program. Maybe you're having some challenges with things like time management and study strategies and test prep. Those are also things we can help you with through the Academic Achievement Center, and you can submit a request on our website to meet with an academic skills specialist. I will say that we do have a wait list currently, but we're working really hard to get students assigned to a skills specialist as quickly as we can. So don't hesitate to submit a request. We are still happy to meet with students. The last thing I would echo is something Scott said in his remarks, which is your instructor is a great resource. Utilize those office hours. That's what they're there for. Take your questions around course content or assignments that you might be unsure of to those office hours and really utilize them to get the answers that you need.
Awesome. Thank you so much, Sam. Dana Saunders is our representative from the Students First office. Dana, what are advising drop-in hours and what can they be used for?
Oh, great question, Gavin. So advising drop-in hours are time periods that many of our advising centers on campus have for students, typically for when they have relatively quick questions that they'd like to ask an academic advisor about without necessarily needing to take the time to schedule an appointment. Generally, drop-in hours are pretty brief. I would say about 15, maybe 20 minutes max, whereas an advising appointment would generally last somewhere between 30 or 45 minutes, depending on how your academic advisor sort of frames things. Most of our schools and colleges have advising centers that hold advising drop-in hours, but we don't all have the same drop-in hours. So if students are interested in a quick question that they need to ask an academic advisor, maybe tomorrow after they sit through this session today, if they're interested in that for their school or college, I definitely suggest that's a great follow-up question to ask in the upcoming breakouts that we have later on this evening. I can tell you that the Students First office holds drop-in hours for any undergraduate student, regardless of your major. So we're kind of generalists in that way, from 1 to 4 p.m. Monday through Friday. So every afternoon, Monday through Friday. This semester, we're holding those drop-in hours virtually. So students, if you're interested in those, you can simply go to our website, which is studentsfirst, all one word, .uncg.edu. There's a big teal banner on the very top of our website that says, if you're here for drop-in hours, click here to see the next available advisor. And so when you click that link, it'll take you to our live chat. And our student support staff will get you connected to the Zoom room of the advisor that's on call for that particular day. So it's a great option with any of our advising centers. I definitely would encourage students to utilize it for those quick questions. However, one thing I'll say, I do want to make sure students know that drop-in hours should never substitute for their actual advising appointment or meeting, which I know we'll talk about here a little bit later. But those are appointments for a reason. They're longer for a reason. So don't think that you can utilize the drop-in hours for all of your questions regarding planning for spring 2021 advising and registration. You'll have an appointment for that.
Excellent, excellent, excellent. Thank you so much, Dana. Speaking of advising hours and drop-in hours, Samantha, does the Academic Achievement Center have drop-in hours? And what types of things could a student ask during drop-in hours for the AAC?
That's a great question. We do have drop-in hours on Mondays and Tuesdays from 2 to 4 p.m. And again, we have a chat on our website that you could also utilize. So similar to what Dana mentioned about the advising drop-in hours, these are great opportunities for what I call just-in-time support. So if you have a discrete issue or challenge that you're needing assistance with kind of immediately or right now, specialists are available to help you, guide you to resources, help you identify some strategies that might be able to target that specific topic. It shouldn't be utilized if you have sort of a persistent issue or topic that you'd like to continually meet with a skills specialist about. That's better utilized through actual appointments, which may be 1 or 3, depending on what your needs are. So drop-ins are really good for quick hits. The other thing that we have available are university-wide workshops, and we actually have 3 coming up this month. One on study strategies, one on test taking, and one on memory and concentration. So all of the information for those workshops and how to register is on our website, and you can get all of the links that we're talking about today right in this freshman forum page under the resources drop down.
Okay. Awesome. Thank you so much, so much. As a reminder, students, we are still accepting questions via the link below the video you're viewing right now. So please continue to submit questions as they arise. Coming back to Dana, heading into spring course registration, what are the basics about course registration that all first-year students need to know?
So Gavin, I had a feeling you were going to ask me that question.
Yes.
There's a lot of parts to this, right? So I'm going to pull up actually a PowerPoint slide real quick, because if you're like me, when you hear things, it can go in one ear and out the other, but if you're looking at it, it maybe helps the information stick just
Absolutely.
a little bit better. So bear with me and maybe give me a thumbs up here in just a sec.
Alrighty.
To let me know that you're seeing everything as you should.
I've got slides on my camera.
Awesome. Okay. So course registration need to know. So we're going to try to cover as many questions as we have in a pretty swift amount of time, but I know we will also want to leave time for our live questions coming in later. So When I think about, or when I talk to students about planning for the first time, advising and registration, I think the best place to start is really with knowing what the timeline is, because that helps you kind of plan within that framework. So I'm going to throw a couple dates out there that I think are really important for students to know. First, starting tomorrow, so heads up, tomorrow, the spring 2021 course registration, or I'm sorry, course schedule is going to be available for viewing in UNCG. This is the first time that students and advisors will be able to see exactly the courses that are going to be offered next semester. And not just what's being offered, but also when and how. So starting tomorrow, maybe even tonight, because sometimes they sneak it in there a day early. You should be able to go into UNCG, click on the Genie emblem at the top of the website. Without even logging in, you can just click on course schedule, and you'll be able to select spring 2021 and then start to search for classes based on either a department or maybe by a general education category. And so you can start to see not only what's being offered, but what days and times it's meeting. Maybe it's going to be in a hybrid meeting pattern. I know a lot of folks are in hybrid classes this semester. Maybe it's going to be an online course. You'll be able to see all of those options so students can start planning out their schedule from there, or at least getting a sneak peek of what's being offered and what they might take before their actual advising session begins. So that's an important date to keep in mind. Registration will actually start a couple of weeks from now for students beginning October 26th. Now, for the vast majority of you all who are watching, who are with us today, you will not necessarily register on October 26th, but this is the first time that some proportion of our undergraduate students are going to start registering, likely really starting with our seniors, because the way registration happens is it starts first with our students who've been here the longest or have earned the most number of credit hours. And then a couple of days later, the registration will open for our juniors, and then our sophomores, and then our freshmen. But I tell you this just so you have the context of when registration will begin, and also when all of the advising appointments are happening, because all undergraduate students are starting their advising sessions and having their advising meetings at the same time, even though their registration windows don't open at the same time. So I'll talk a little bit more about registration windows in a minute, but likely for the majority of you all on this call who are freshmen, so those who've earned somewhere between 0 and 29 hours, your registration windows are going to open likely November 10th or 11th. So you've got a little bit of time before you really need to be fully prepared and ready to log in and register for your classes. But that's where the planning comes into place. And so we'll talk a little bit more about that in just a minute. And ideally, in an ideal world, we want all of our students who are currently enrolled at UNCG right now to have to be registered for spring classes, likely by November 17th, because on November 18th, that's when the registration windows open for any of our new students, so students who are not currently enrolled right now. And that becomes even more students who are trying to get registered for classes and take up seats. So that really November 17th is when we start what we call the schedule adjustment period, where you're likely locked into a full schedule, but you're just going to make tweaks between November and when classes start in the spring. So hopefully everybody's with me with that. But so I said most students will register November 10th or 11th, but it's important that all of you all students, that each of you know when your specific registration window is. Again, it's based on earned semester hours. So if some of you have brought in credit from a community college or maybe AP or IB credit, you may have a slightly different registration window than students who haven't brought in any credit. And so it's important that you check, like I would encourage you to tonight or tomorrow to log in and see when your registration window is. You can find this in UNCG. Again, it's unique, specific to you. And I've got the steps here on the screen. But you'll log into UNCG, you'll go to the student tab and then registration. You'll click your registration status and ask specifically for spring 2021. And then it's going to bring up a screen similar to the image that you see here. All of our registration windows, regardless of what date your registration window opens on, they all open at 12:01 a.m. And so it's important to make note of that because So for example, this is kind of an outdated image, but for this student's registration, it opens October 23rd, 2017. Let's pretend that says 2020 at 12:01 a.m. That means they want to stay up late or at least be in front of their computer late actually on October 22nd, because the minute that clock passes midnight and 12:01 hits, that's when their registration window opens. And so that's why it's really important to be prepared exactly when your registration window opens and do the planning ahead of time, because it opens when advisors aren't here to help answer your questions. So you want to be sure to advance plan as much as possible. And because of that advanced planning, that's why I definitely want to emphasize more than anything else, I think in this presentation, is don't wait. Take steps to schedule your advising appointment now. It's definitely, I think, easy to be sort of lulled into this false sense of, oh, I've got plenty of time. My registration window doesn't open until November 10th or November 11th. But again, those advising appointments, this is the busiest time of year for academic advisors. And we want to make sure we help all of you all in a timely kind of way, but that means advanced planning on your part too. So even though your registration window might not open for another month or 5 weeks, you can go ahead and start scheduling your advising appointment now. If you've not heard from your advising center yet or your academic advisor yet on how to schedule an appointment, save that question for your upcoming breakout session, because they'll definitely, I bet they're prepared to answer that before you even ask it anyway, but make sure you leave today knowing, okay, what am I on the lookout for? How do I know how to sign up for advising and when it's time to do so? And as soon as you're prompted to do so and have that information, jump right on it. Because ideally your advising meeting should happen at least a couple of days ahead of when your registration window opens. But that means that you've got to plan at least a couple weeks in advance of that. Or otherwise, if you try to schedule only a week out or a couple of days out, you may try to sign up with your academic advisor and find out they don't have any slots available. So definitely plan at least a couple of weeks out and go ahead and take steps to schedule your advising appointment now. Okay, so let's talk briefly about what to expect when you actually have your advising appointment. My disclaimer here is that all of the advising appointments are likely going to look or feel a little bit different based upon your school or college, what major you're in, if you're declared in a major already. Some of our advising takes place in a group setting. Generally, a lot of it happens one-on-one. So it can look and feel a little bit different. So if you're hearing that what your advising session is going to be like or what it is like is very different from your roommate or your best friend or that kid that sits next to you in biology, that's okay. But there are 3 things that you can definitely expect, right? First is that you and your advisor will review together your degree works evaluation. Now, some of you may have heard about degree works. Either you may remember way back at SOAR when you did your virtual SOAR modules. So we talked about degree works evaluations there. Others of you may have heard about it in your FYE 101 class or maybe your HHS 125 class. If you haven't heard about it at all, that is okay too. So don't panic. But this is just a quick sort of mini snapshot of what your degree works evaluation is. It can be a little overwhelming at first. Essentially, it's a checklist. So just remind yourself, it's a checklist of all the classes and requirements that you need eventually to complete in order to earn your degree. And it keeps track of what you've already completed, what you're enrolled in right now, and what you have left to register for in a future semester. So this is a really important tool that you'll review with your advisor and you'll become really familiar with over time. Because you'll be able to look at it and see, okay, what are the requirements that I've not yet completed? And that's a great place to start when you're first starting to map out your spring registration. So just know that this is a tool that if you're not familiar with it yet, or even if you just kind of have a fuzzy recollection of it, it's going to become an important tool and lifeline that you'll use every semester when you're planning out your registration. The second thing that you can expect from your advising appointment is in some way, shape, or form, you're going to map out a tentative spring 2021 course schedule. You won't register for courses because remember your registration window opens at 12:01 a.m. when your academic advisors are probably asleep. But you'll at least map out a tentative course schedule. Now, it may not be every detail. So it might not have the exact section of English 101, Section 4 meeting Monday, Wednesday, Friday at 9 to 9:50. You might not know that level of detail, but you'll at least leave with a list of courses that your advisor has recommended that you register for, maybe with a couple of alternatives in mind. And then if you don't have time to do it in your advising session, you'll take that list of courses and be able to search for them in your course schedule search, so that you can start to really map out a very specific registration plan when your registration window opens a week or two later. And then last but not least, the third thing that you'll get from your advising appointment is you'll receive your spring 2021 advising code. A couple of things to know about the advising code. First of all, it's specific to you. So your advising code is different from your roommate, from your best friend. So don't expect that you can swap or share codes. Second, it's specific to the spring 2021 term. So whether you know it or not, you have an advising code for your fall classes. If you wanted to ever make changes to your fall registration, you'll get a brand new one for spring 2021. And then you'll get a new one every semester from this point forward. So it's specific to you. It's specific to this term. And it is really important because it essentially unlocks the registration system in UNCG for you on the night that your registration window opens. It's kind of like a passcode. So you can't register for classes without it. And it's really important. So those are sort of the three things. There will be lots of time for question and answer with your advisor in your session. And obviously opportunities to follow up with them later as well. But these are kind of the three things that you can definitely plan for. So, really important, you must attend your advising meeting to receive your advising code, and you must have your advising code to register. So that's why it's really important to plan ahead, have your advising appointment, be sure that that happens well before your registration windows, because otherwise, because you must attend your advising meeting to get your advising code, you might find yourself in a pickle if your registration window is open, but you haven't met yet with your advisor. And so then you really miss sort of your prime opportunity to register for classes and maximize the seat availability in courses and that kind of thing. Okay, real quick, I do want to just mention briefly summer. The short version is don't worry about summer now, but it's great to start thinking about it. If you're really considering summer session, I know it feels like a million years from now, but it'll be here fast. If you're thinking about it, go ahead and mention it to your advisor when you meet with them for your advising session this spring. They may say, okay, great, let's plan a follow-up conversation after you get registered for spring. But it at least puts it on their radar and gets you moving in the right direction. A couple of key dates, since I mentioned at the beginning, the best way to start to plan is to think about timeline. The summer course schedule will be available in mid-December, exact date coming soon. But it'll be viewable in mid-December for you to see in UNCG, just like you're going to be able to see the spring schedule tomorrow. And then tentatively, summer registration will begin February 1st. Now, if you're friends with some upperclassmen who've been here for a couple semesters and you hear that that's not how things usually go, that's true. This is new this semester. So don't let them sway you, but tentatively, more information coming soon, but likely registration for summer is going to start in February. So you can look forward to that next semester. All right, so just because I can't drive it home long enough, don't wait. Schedule your advising appointment now. If you're not sure how to do that, make sure you leave your breakout session with your advising center academic advisors here at the end of our program. Make sure you leave with that information. But I've thrown a lot at you, so let's just quickly review next steps. Tonight, tomorrow, within the next 24 hours, what I want you to do is look up your registration window in UNCG. Again, you'll log in, go to the Students tab, Registration tab, check your registration status. So that starts your planning process. This week, next week timeframe, schedule your appointment for your advising session and aim for an appointment that's at least a couple days before your registration windows. If you can get in earlier than that, that's great, because that gives you a buffer in case something unexpected happens, but at least a few days before your registration window opens. Later this month, after your advising session actually happens, Make sure you're mapping out really as finalized a course schedule as you can get. Aim for somewhere between 15 to 16 hours is generally what we recommend to stay on track to graduate in 4 years. But you make sure you've got it finalized down to the section, like exactly what section you're registered for before your registration window opens. And then that night, the night that your registration window opens, make sure you double check your plan, make sure the seats are available in the classes that you're planning on. Log into UNCG a few minutes before midnight, and then be ready to log in right when you're with using your advising code right when 12:01 a.m. hits. And that's everything. We're ready now, right?
Excellent. Thank you so much, Dana. A lot of detailed information right there. So now we have some questions from the audience. And so, Dana, I'm actually going to throw this right back at you. Our first question coming from the audience asks, what if we are not 100% sure what we want the major to be that we've chosen? What resources are available for those who are having doubts about their majors? And what is the process to change your major?
Great question. So first of all, I just want to say, I guarantee that any students out there that are reconsidering their major or maybe just not sure that it's the right fit for them, that is completely 100% the freshman experience, the first year experience. And it's great to question that. Even if you decide it's the best fit for you, it's great to constantly kind of like reflect on that and make sure this is really what you're wanting to do. So if you're thinking about maybe my current major is not the best fit for me, there are really 3 resources that I can immediately recommend. First of all, I think it's great to go ahead and talk with your assigned academic advisor about the questions that you're having. That's someone that you're already connected to, even if you haven't had an opportunity to meet with them yet this semester. And many of the advisors, all of the advisors in the advising centers, even though their expertise is in specific majors and specific schools and colleges, they're used to having those conversations with students. So they can kind of walk you through that. I'll do another plug for the Students First office. And I mentioned our drop-in hours specifically. So the Students First office, we're the advising center for all students who are exploring their major or haven't decided yet, haven't made that sort of commitment yet. And so because of that, we also have a lot of conversations with students who are considering different options. So I would say, take advantage of our virtual drop-ins, schedule what we call a supplemental appointment to talk through major exploration, to just kind of see like what else might be out there that piques your interest. And last but not least, the other one that I'll really recommend is our Career and Professional Development Center office on campus. A lot of times it's hard to zero in on a major, but students can have a pretty good idea of the kind of career aspirations that they have and are looking for the major or majors that will get them there. And so sometimes it really helps to kind of work from that different perspective of thinking about what are the careers that I'm interested in, what am I looking for post-graduation, and what are the different pathways to get me there. A lot of times there's more than one option, and there maybe was an option, like students were just thinking about one specific major, but really there are like 3 or 4 or 5 options that could still lead them to those goals. And so I think that's a great resource. As far as the process for changing your major, so there's a major declaration form on our University Registrar's Office website, and that is the primary starting point for most of our majors on campus. There are sometimes some additional kind of supplemental steps to walk through depending on what major you're planning to start from, but that's the best place to start.
Excellent. Thank you so much. We got a lot of questions about what next semester is going to look like. So the next one up says, will UNCG operate on a hybrid schedule next year? And will there be more physical classes in the spring versus online?
I can tackle that at least to start with. That would be helpful. I'm sure people maybe are tired of hearing from Dana, but I'm happy to answer that. So the plan, what the university is planning for right now is that our spring schedule will be very similar to our fall schedule in terms of the percentages of courses that we're offering in each sort of type of meeting pattern. So this semester, about a little less than, I'd say about 45% of our classes are exclusively online. So never meeting face to face. About 45% are exclusively face to face. So they're in person, physically meeting in a meeting space on campus. About 10% of our classes are the hybrid format that I mentioned very briefly earlier. So where you're spending maybe some time in a classroom with some or part of the students that are enrolled in that class, but some of your time is spent in online through Canvas or some other kind of platform. So the university is planning for that same kind of breakdown for the spring semester. The difference is, for all of our students, we kind of made that shift in the summer last time after most students had already registered. The difference is, students, you're going to know what the different course sections meeting patterns are before you ever register. So if you want to prioritize meeting in classes that are only face-to-face, that's something that you want to be sure to look for in the course schedule search once that goes live tomorrow. If you're wanting exclusively an online only schedule, there's going to be lots of options for you, but again, you're going to want to be looking for that. So that'll be very clearly articulated as either in-person, in-person, online, or hybrid in the course schedule search. So you'll be able to make those decisions before you ever register.
Excellent, excellent, excellent. Thank you so much. So we have time for one more question coming from the audience. And so the last one is really going to help everybody. And it reads, what study tips do you have for students during midterms and thinking ahead to finals? So I'd ask anybody who has some insight on that to chime in. Insights for midterms and finals, study tips.
I'll chime in on that one. Definitely we partner with the Academic Achievement Center, so they would be a good resource if you need some structure in terms of how to schedule study times and develop the habits and those types of things that you need to be able to be committed to your studies. But for the most part, I believe in what I call chunking. And by chunking, I mean, is to go back and review your notes in segmented portions. Make some flashcards and ask yourself some questions and test yourself on the materials that you are going to be studying to make sure that you're comprehending and understanding the information. But definitely chunk your study time so you're not cramming, if you will, and that you're allotting yourself enough time to really sit and really learn the information and not just memorize the information. Because not only is it going to be beneficial to you in terms of passing the midterm, but it's going to benefit you later on in life as you get into your career, profession, or just advance in life in general. And I'm sure my other colleagues here have some other tips and points that they can offer. But chunking to me has been a lifesaver for me, and I've shared that with a number of other students who've always said that it was beneficial to them.
Excellent, excellent, excellent. Thank you so much. Any other insight, tips before we move forward?
This maybe comes as no surprise since I keep talking about timelines, but I would say I always really like and appreciate reverse planning. So starting with the end in mind and working backwards from there. So you know when your final is, you know when that paper's due, work backwards from there to sort of figure out what you need to do to get there and how long that's going to take you. So I've just mentioned that as well.
Excellent.
Yeah, I think
excellent.
the last thing I would say is just recognize that there are different studies techniques for different kinds of classes. So just, be aware that if you feel like something isn't working across courses, that's normal, it's usual. You may just need to employ a different study tactic for that class.
Excellent. Thank you all. Thank you all. So that is actually all the time that we have for student submitted questions. Thank you to everyone who submitted those. You all, if you submitted other questions, you will be hearing back from YFY directly. So that is all the time we have for our panel, but I'd like to thank each of you for joining us tonight. The second half of this program will consist of breakout sessions hosted by each college or school's advising center. During the breakout sessions, academic advisors will share very important information you need to know when preparing for your advising appointment and for spring course registration. To join those breakout sessions, please visit go.uncg.edu/freshman forum breakout sessions. Again, that's go.uncg.edu/freshman forum breakout sessions. This link will take you to a page where you can select your college or school to join your breakout session. If you have any questions, please text YFY at 1-336-541-6939. Again, that's 1-336-541-6939. Thank you all so much for joining us tonight, and good luck with spring registration.